First of all, in Islam there is conquest. Without a doubt, there is conquest. We don't deny it. And there's nothing strange in saying this, because this is just the nature of empire and civilization. Right? The whole of history is empires, civilizations coming and going, fighting, war. This is just a matter of fact and reality. Because Islam is the deen of the messengers and is safety in this life and deliverance in the hereafter, then by necessity there is within Islam the fighting to remove obstacles presented in the face of Islam and preaching Islam. Right? So within Islam it is legislated to fight in order to remove all the obstacles which are placed in front of the people hearing the message of Islam, and to remove those obstacles with physical force where that is necessary. So certainly that is one of the ways that Islam clearly spread. It took over, certain empires, many conquests, many battles. So yes, but this is more in the sense that you remove the people who are obstacles. It's not that you're fighting every single person to force him to convert to Islam, by the sword, which is what they are, the image that they're trying to present, that people were forced at the point of the sword to convert to Islam, and this is what Islam actually no. What Islam does is that the fighting is to remove obstacles and hindrance from the preaching of Islam and from people freely hearing the message of Islam without the lies, without the shubuhat, without the whatever. And normally what you find is that the people who step in the way and prevent the people from accepting Islam or listening to Islam are the ones who lose the most, right? These are the profiteers. These are the ones who are basically invested in alcohol, invested in gambling, they make money from the vices that Islam prohibits. Islam prohibits interest, usury. Islam prohibits gambling. Islam prohibits fornication. Islam prohibits, and usually the people of, likewise it prohibits shirk, right? So you find amongst the people of disbelief that they have religions which are oppressive, right? Where, the religion itself is just a lie in order to embezzle wealth from the people. Like you see evangelical Christians, for example, making millions and millions from gullible, brainwashed, Christians. And they make millions of them, they fly in the jets. And so it's like a religion where people are being, misled, misguided, and embezzled. This is the nature of false religion. And so when Islam comes and it demolishes all of these superstitions, falsehood, and the manipulation of basic human sentiments. So clearly there's going to be enemies. There's going to be enemies who are going to stand in the way. And they do not want the people to be freed and liberated from these shackles, from these clutches. So these are the people now who stand in the way. They don't want the message to be heard. They might do it either physically they might do it with physical force, or they might do it by way of lies, by way of propaganda, which we see nowadays, like we see through media and publications and whatever. So they have different ways of standing between people and Islam, standing between people and paradise, standing between people and drawing them and calling them to the hellfire. So the Sharia has legislated fighting to remove these obstacles and to allow people to freely hear the message. And no doubt Islam did spread by conquest, of course it did. But overwhelmingly, most of the people who actually became Muslim, they didn't become Muslim by being forced at the point of the sword to become a Muslim. This is actually recognized by all the well-known, credible historians that, it was through trade, for example. It was through treaties, for example, Muslim rulers having treaties with other nations, opening up trade, interactions that they had with each other. Even during the Crusades, for example, yes, fighting did take place, but then many of the Christians saw the difference between the Muslims and their fellow Christians. And when they realized that they were being robbed and looted by their fellow Christians and left to be slaughtered, and the Muslims actually had sympathy for them, even though they were the enemies that they were fighting against, large numbers became Muslim. Right? This is established and written in the history books, that many, many people became Muslim by seeing the manners of the Muslims, the honesty in trade dealings, the fact that they keep themselves pure and wash themselves daily and pray devoutly in the mosque. They're like looking at all of this in wonderment and amazement and thinking, well, what have we got? We've got corrupt priests. We got, monkish celibacy, which is corrupt. We got so they're seeing all this contrast, and then they willingly accepting this. This is known. This is known and established in the history books. Even many of the historians say, why did Islam spread through Africa so quickly? What was the reason? Well, it's because the people were steeped in superstition, magic, all sorts of kind of backward evil. And Islam came and swept all of that, swept it all away like this. So this is known and recognized. So the answer, briefly, is yes, there was conquest. Muslims did fight. Yes, Muslims are ordered to, take Islam to other people. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to fight in order to spread usury, your central bank, to loot the people, if you're going to fight in order to spread filth, like they do these days, like going to Africa and saying, we know you need millions for your infrastructure, for the water. We're not going to give that to you. But if you teach LGBT and teach homosexuality, then we'll give you some debt relief. All right. So you want them to teach LGBT, so you can give them some debt relief from the IMF, but you don't want to give them money to have clean water, clothing, clean infrastructure to get rid of the disease. You don't want to do that, right? So you're willing even to do coups and assassinations and even engage in wars for the purpose of spreading this stuff. So if you can do that, what's the issue with Islam doing the same thing to abolish usury, right? No interest, which pulls the rug from under your power, and to spread family values, and to spread honesty, chastity, and trust, and all the traits and qualities that that make a society healthy, and to function well, and to liberate man from enslavement. Well, what's wrong with that? If you can fight for that and to bomb nations back to the Stone Ages, and kill millions, and to go across the whole world to do that, what's your issue with Islam getting rid of usury from nations, getting rid of fornication from nations, getting rid of oppressive trade practices from nations, and making every person to be free? What's wrong with that? There's So I think that Shubha, what they do is, there's two issues here. One is that there's some Orientalists, and they try to push the thing where they say, oh, Islam was not spread by the sword. And what they want the people to think is that there's no such thing as conquest. But that's not true. There actually is. Right, there is. And on the other side, there's some people who want to say that Islam was spread just by conquest, at the point of the sword, to force people to convert. That's not true. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he mentions in, I think, Zad al-Ma'ad, that even the Messenger of Allah himself, he never ever forced a single person against his will to accept Islam. And whenever he fought, it's because the mushrikeen, the kuffar, they brought the battle to him. So he fought against them. But he never force converted a single person to accept Islam. As Ibn al-Qayyim says that. So, in other words, our position is like, it's neither this nor that. We're not saying that Islam is there to, force convert the whole world, because guidance is in the hand of Allah. We just convey the message, and if there's any hindrance that comes in the way, then fighting is legislated to remove that hindrance. Right? And so yes, there is fighting, there is conquest, but there is no forced conversion of the individual at the point of the sword, because then you are just breeding hypocrisy. This breeds hypocrisy, that people are forced to convert to Islam against their will, so that now they will end up being like hypocrites internally, and that will harm the security of the state, that you have hypocrites in your midst. So to answer your question briefly, yes, Islam spread, was conquest. The Muslim, the caliphs, Muawiyah and others, they had huge conquests, alhamdulillah. But this was, the fighting was minimal. It wasn't like millions upon millions killed. It was just, they defeated an army, then they took administrative control over an area. Then they started making treaties with this one, with that one, with that one. Trade relations opened, whatever. And people are now free to interact with Muslims and learn about Islam and whatever. And large numbers became Muslim. This is how overwhelmingly Islam spread to the east and to the west. It wasn't just like conquest, Most of it was treaties. So that's true, there was conquest. And on the other hand, most of the people accepting Islam did so freely, willingly, by looking at the morals, manners, beliefs, conduct of the Muslims. This is well known and written. If you go to the book, This is Islam, you'll find a chapter in there, and it quotes from this guy called Arnold. He's got a history of Muslim conquests, and in there's some really nice quotes that he brings from medieval sources, where it mentions all these things, like how Christians opened the gates of their towns for the Muslims. Please come, we want you to come and rule us. We want you to come and rule us rather than our oppressive Christian brethren. There's many examples like this where they preferred the rule of the Muslims rather than the rule of their fellow Christians, because they know they were corrupt and evil. So yeah, that was best.